What is up, guys? We have the meat cap that I'm sure you guys have all been waiting for. We have Miss Bella Delgado, your two-time 56 kilo collegiate national champion. In this video, I'm going to be going over more in depth of our strategy for this meet, kind of what the game plan was, what we expected to happen, and then walk you guys through what actually did happen on the day and how we went about, adjusting some of the things that we went for, seeing as how things played out. So, yeah, without further ado, let's hop right in. So, obviously, we are before the meet, we are the defending national champion. Last year, we were the 10th seed. We were the unknowns, right? And came in, ended up winning the whole thing. It was a battle to the very end. Came down to the very last deadlift, won by just 2.5 keys. And so, turning around, we had a fantastic year of training. We made two big adjustments to Bella's training. One was going from conventional to sumo. That almost immediately just added, a ton of kilos to her total, where 400 was her third attempt, 405, it was 408 in kilos, right? 408 pounds was her third attempt at last year's Collegiate Nationals. Now she was going to hit more than that for an opener. So made tremendous progress just by switching, and a big thanks to Mark Owen for that. He was able to be there with her for most sessions and just really help her dial in her sumo technique. So it was a very smooth and very fast transition to sumo. I haven't honestly seen any athlete that I've ever coached transition from conventional to sumo so seamlessly. So that was amazing. And then the other big change we made was we switched her from just benching 3 times a week to 4 times a week. Honestly, we had gotten away with benching 3 times a week for way too long. And I told myself at the slightest hint of bench slowing down, I was going to bump it to 4 because her bench training was really easy. And I remember, I think it was during the summer, towards the end of the summer last year, where Bella had brought up, she's like, hey, bench is starting to not feel as good, or starting to feel a little flat. I was like, all right, we're going to 4. And so we made that change, and that kind of immediately gave us a nice boost that we're still riding off of. And yeah, so those were the two biggest changes. Squat, really, we made no changes other than we did a November meet as sort of a tune-up meet between the two nationals, just to make sure everything was still good. We wanted to test sumo and just kind of see where things are at. And one thing that did change for squat, I guess, was that as Bella has advanced as an athlete, she's gotten a lot more muscular, and we ended up kind of developing a depth issue where she was just so jacked that the way she was squatting wasn't cutting it for depth. And so we did actually go in that November meet, went 1 for 3 on squat. And so we identified, okay, this is an issue, we need to fix this. And we really hammered on that from between November until April here. So but in our minds, we felt like we had done a really good job cleaning it up. Depth looked great in training, especially in the last few blocks leading up to competition. And I will also say that in our last 2 blocks leading into the meet were identical blocks. We had some singles that only ramped up to RP 8. Bella is it's not the perfect analogy, but when I'm programming for her, I almost think about it as a sports car. It's very fast, it's very explosive, but as soon as we start slowing down, everything kind of starts to fall apart a little bit. So if we get too heavy and too bogged down across the board, she gets a lot more sore, things start to hurt, and we have to do a lot more prehab stuff. So one of the big things with Bella's training is always just keeping everything decently sub-maximal, only working up to 8 RPEs, at least on squat and deadlift. Bench you can go up to 9s. And actually, bench is almost the opposite, where we kind of push it to 9, we push it to some 10s. There's even one of her bench day, her secondary day, which is more of a rep day. She actually notoriously will fail 1 rep on the week 4. It always happens. But then she'll show up so that's her day 2 bench, and then her day 4 bench still goes amazing. So it's something we kind of just have rolled with, because we're all right, it doesn't really matter. We're pushing the exertion. That's a really important thing, and then it ends up still showing up really strong on the day 4. So yeah, bench is the opposite, right, where we push that hard, but squat and deadlift we do not push super hard in terms of the exertion. We do more volume and some max volume, even to the point where like the last block leading into or second to last block, we were really just kind of playing around with like the exact percentages we wanted on her pause squats and her pause deadlift, which are her secondary days at the back end of the week, and we really got those dialed in. So then the last block leading into the meet, we knew exactly the numbers we wanted to hit each week for those specific lifts. We basically just repeated it, and she was able to, we could tell she was really locked in, because when you compare the two blocks, her performance was way better in the block leading into the meet, that the second block, once we really dialed in those last few percentage points. So yeah, prep had gone amazing. Her body weight also was fantastic. She had been working with Maya for nutrition, and she got down to weight a few weeks earlier where she needed to be for the cut, and so then she was actually able to kind of like reverse diet a little bit out of it and start eating a little bit more leading into the meet, which was sick. So very thankful that I got to kind of hand that off. I didn't have to like be the one who handled that. It was really nice to have Maya be able there to handle the nutrition and handle the recomp on meet day, because that is I'm can absolutely do it, but it's definitely not my strength. And so to have someone there who is very confident about it, or someone in control of it who's very confident about it, just makes my life easier, right? And I could just to focus on what I'm good at, which is the attempt selection and all that other fun game day stuff. So we were feeling very strong. Honestly, some of the best training of her life. She was super strong, feeling great. Body weight was good. Like we were firing all cylinders. We were feeling amazing. So now we're going to look at what did we expect to happen at the meet. So looking at the roster, when you look at just the qualifying totals leading into the meet, Bella and Jessica were both tied for qualifying totals. It was I should have pulled this number before the video. But basically, they were tied for qualifying totals, and then there was a decent gap between them and everyone else. Gina being the next one in line, that third one, and then everyone else is pretty low. So, the lady who we competed against last year, who got second, actually wasn't competing this year. She, I heard a couple different stories. I don't really know, but basically, she didn't compete this year, right? But I think she was eligible too, but she just didn't. So really, in my opinion, our only competition was Jessica. I still scouted everyone else out because obviously, like, we were the unknown last year. We came in and won it all. So I was like, all right, I can't just like say that's not going to happen again, right? So I went through, looked through everybody, looked through their training. This weight class was very common in that like no one posted their training at all. So I actually didn't have a ton of data to pull, but just doing my best speculation. I didn't think anyone was in the wheelhouse. Just for example, when Bella won last year, from her QT to when she the total they ended up winning was about a 50 kilo increase. No one else that wasn't Jessica or Gina was even like, they weren't going to be like, their QT they would need to jump like close to 100 kilos to match where I had projected Bella at. So I was like, all right, I don't think that's going to happen. I think that based off of what I see, it's really just Jessica. I don't think Gina is going to put up a fight for first. I think she's just trying to get third. So it's really just us versus Jessica. And then to be completely fair, Bella ended up having a discussion with Jessica afterwards. They had a nice interaction, and apparently Jessica already knew she wasn't going to touch Bella. Like, the qualifying totals that were tied, that was Bella's November meet, which was her worst meet ever, and that was Jessica's 9 for 9 best day ever. So according to what Bella told me, is that Jessica saw that and goes, all right, my best meet ever tied Bella's worst meet ever. Like, I'm just going to try to get second. So you'll see that when we get later into the actual attempts. She really doesn't end up actually fighting us at all, right? She's just trying to do her thing, and so that I will also like, that does kind of, it's important to know in the background, because like we don't know that, right? So we are making all these assumptions based off of that she is trying to get first from us, but really she's not. So that's just kind of important background information that like is good to know as we're going through this, right? But ultimately, what I had scouted was this, and that Jessica's last meet, which was I think also in like November-ish time frame, was this 162 and a half, which this was the American record. This is the junior and collegiate American record after she got this. So she went 9 for 9, hit this 162, 95, and 175. So this is the total she hit. So this is what I'm going off of, and looking at her general rate of progression, and just kind of also planning for like a worst case scenario. I wanted to plan to beat her, like assuming she had the greatest day of her life, all the stars aligned, and she was firing on all cylinders, which I think you have to do when you're going into these. You have to assume the worst and plan for that. And then anything else that happens that's not the worst is great, right? So I said, okay, worst case scenario, I think a 170 squat, add 7 keys, bench 100, which is adding 5, and then 185, adding 10 kilos to deadlift. How accurate or how realistic do I think this is? I don't know. I just think it's worst case scenario. I think this is what I imagine the upper end of what she could possibly do if she had the greatest progressions of her life, right? From November to April, which puts her at a 450 total. I had us projected that if we put together, I wouldn't say like absolutely like maxing out, but I said that I think if we have really solid thirds and we push ourselves, we're at like 460. I assumed that we could also hit a 170 squat. I thought we would be able to hit an 87 bench, and then somewhere in the like 200 to 202 and a half deadlift. That's where I'd planned. So I think 202 deadlift, 170 squat, and 187 bench puts us at 460. So that's where I projected of like, all right, this is like our comfortable top end, and we might have a little bit more, but I don't think we'll have to go there because this already puts us 10 kilos ahead of Jessica on her best day. So I think that we'll be able to like slightly adjust down if anything. And so based off of this, the way I saw the meet going, and once again, this is assuming that Jessica is actually fighting us, is that Jessica needs the squat chip, right? We technically also can fight for the squat chip and the deadlift chip, right? Which if you guys have seen the end result, you'll know we technically have both. We got both at the end, but in my mind, okay, the squat record is 162 and a half. The deadlift record's 185 and a half, and we're opening at 195. So, or no, the record, we're opening up at 185. The deadlift record is 195. So we're only 10 kilos under the deadlift record. We can technically have both if we really want to, but ultimately, because of the fact that we have the deadlift record, that's the most important record. That's the most important chip to have, right? So I imagine that Jessica was going to fight for the American record, as well as we knew that based off of the roster that she already she had the higher lot number than us, right? So we knew she was like, if we tried to fight her for it, she would get to go for it. So I remember I told Bella in our call, I said, we're going to play for the record, but ultimately I don't care if we get it. It's not important that we get the record. It's important that we maximize your squat to make Jessica really uncomfortable and hopefully miss her third. If she misses her third, it's GG. There's nothing she can do. That's her only real weapon, is she needs to out squat us, and then bench, like there's a decent margin here of what she can get on us for bench. So she needs to create as big of gap as she can with squat and bench over us, and then hope we can't deadlift the difference. So I imagined that, all right, she's probably going to squat 170, 170.5 realistically. Like that's what I think she could do. Based off of the scouting, she tends to jump 10 kilos from start to third. So that means she's probably opening up at 160. And she'll go 160, 165, 170. Our opener is 155. So, or no, 152. Our opener is 152, sorry. So I got all right, they're going to open up heavier than us, and we're just going to play our game, and ultimately we're going to aim for 170 and make them have to out squat us, right? Because I think we could do 170 based off of what Bella had hit in training, which her last heavy squat was like the 358. So going for this 370 number, this 375, I was like, I think we got this easy. So I imagined Jessica was going to go 160, 165, 170.5 to try to beat us. Bench, she would need to do something along the lines here of going for 100 keys. She usually jumps, 7.5 in total. Goes, fun enough, she actually takes bigger jumps from her second to her third, actually. On average, it goes 2.5 and then 5. But you can also see that being flipped. So it could also just be going 5 and 7, which is pretty typical of female bench. And then deadlift. This was the one where, all right, if she could add 10 kilos to her deadlift, that's also just a not super scary, but just like it's definitely it makes sure that she's not falling behind. But ultimately, what I saw is that like as long as we basically do what we did last year, which is we need to go 6 for 6, and then because of the fact that I have Bella projected to hit like around a 200 deadlift, and the record's only 195, we get to put exactly what we need on the bar to win, no matter what. We have the heaviest deadlift bar none. Based off my scouting, no one was going to deadlift. Like I thought 185 is like the upper end of what I was going to see anyone else deadlift for their third, and we were going to that was our opener, right? So no one's getting close to our deadlift. So I know we have the deadlift record, and we're going to have the final say. We get to put down to the exact 0.5 kilo that we want on the bar to win. So ultimately, it's hey, like let's make sure we go 6 for 6, don't miss, and then end it with our deadlift. But still, if we're trying to be really smart about this, we should try to maximize our squat so that if we make Jessica miss, that's great, right? And we could technically walk away with the record, even though ultimately if we don't walk away with the squat record, I don't super care. So that was the biggest plan, and we were once again just focused on Jessica. So going into first attempts, Bella hits this nice easy opener of 152.5 here. Oh, no, not an ad. I'll pause this. All right, we're back. So we opened up at 152. Jessica, important to note, Jessica ended up opening at 155. So I thought if they're going to go 170, that they would open up at 160. Jessica only opened up at 155. So immediately I'm thinking, okay, we are probably like this isn't worst case scenario like I was playing. We're probably sitting pretty chill here. Like they're not gonna push us super hard. 155 was her squat opener. Bench opener was 87, I believe. I can't remember off the top of my head. And then deadlift was only 160. And I was pretty sure it was. Let me double check, because I do actually have this number. Yeah, so they opened up 87 and they opened up 160. So I remember when I saw these, I thought, okay, this makes sense. This makes sense. I almost thought this was a bluff when I saw this. I figured, all right, they might just be keeping the opener really low to like lure us into a false sense of security, and then they might bump it up and be just to try to like throw us off, because like theoretically, like I'm a younger coach. I quote unquote haven't been in a ton of battles, so like I figured that maybe an experienced coach from Midland might try to play some games with us, try to play some mind games, see if they could throw us off. So I almost thought this was potentially a bluff of like, because I projected this to be closer to like 180, 182, 185, right? So I figured this would need to be higher to get to that range. So I actually thought this might be a bluff, but I fully believed these two. So not to spoil it, but so we hit this. first squat. Super easy. We are very strong, very on point. We look great. So we hit this. Funny enough, this is actually kind of a funny note. When after, so during Bella's recomp, made weight super easy. She started recomping, and she actually had some like weird indigestion where she said she felt like she was gonna throw up after like every attempt. Like she was kind of just like bloated and gassy. Something in the recomp wasn't like just didn't agree with her. So we're gonna look into that a little bit better. But I mean, obviously she recomped well in terms of electrolytes and strength, just like she felt like she just wasn't like fully digested in her stomach by the time we got around to squats. So definitely need to dial that in a little bit. But so super strong, super easy first attempt here. Now, from our perspective, Jessica is directly following us. So I don't get to see Jessica's opener. I just go, I turn the corner. I go put in our next attempt. I go, all right, that looked great. We're going with our plan, which is 162.5. Now, this is where this could technically be considered a bad attempt selection, right? Because the record is 162.5. On paper, should I have gone just 163? Maybe, but like in my mind, I go, we have the deadlift record. We have the deadlift chip. That's the most important one to have. I'm not overly concerned about the squat chip at this point. And Bella's last heavy squat was 162.5. So I want to see that exact lift repeated on the platform so I have a mental image of what that looks like compared to her previous attempt of it, so I can kind of see how we're gauging and then make the next attempt. Even though 0.5 is not terribly different, I still, in my mind, I just went, all right, we don't need to take the chip here. And it was just easier to put 162 so that I got a exact replica attempt of what her last squat in training was. So I went in and put 162. I turned the corner and I go look at lifting casts, and I see that Jessica missed her opener, but I don't know why. Right? I didn't actually see the attempt. I just kind of watch what they do. And they still end up going up, right? They go from 155 to 160. And I go, okay, that's still like reasonable if they're going to go 160 to then go like 170. Like obviously they want to advance the game state so that they don't get too far behind, but they don't want to risk bombing for whatever. Because I don't know what 155, I don't know if it was a depth call or what it was. Ends up it was a depth call. But yeah, so that was kind of interesting where it's like, all right, I didn't get to see the second, or I didn't get to see the opener. But what happens is now it flips, where now Bella has the higher second than Jessica. So now we're following them. So in my mind, in terms of the battle, now we're in the driver's seat, right? They need to out squat us, or they need to tie us on squat, but they have to now go first. And so now we're in the driver's seat to beat them in the squat. So, for our second attempt squat, we have 162 here, and when I watch Jessica do her attempt, let me see if I can just back this up real quick. So this is 160. Blast this up, right? This looked like an opener, honestly. So I saw this and I go, it's not unreasonable for them to go 170, but I was like, honestly, they can put whatever they want on the bar. Like, that looked like an opener. That was really easy. Now they're just going to put whatever they think is the most confident thing. But luckily, they have to put their attempt in first. We get to put ours in afterwards. So we get the advantage of seeing what that is, and we get to go from there. So we go out for our 162.5, which once again ties the American record. Really solid second attempt here. Barely slowed down. Looked great. Bella said it felt great. So very, very happy with that. And I figured, okay, like I'm confident going up to 170 if we need to. But we turned the corner. to go put in our attempt, and I see that Jessica puts in 165. So not really pushing us, right? Like in my mind, I go, okay, if they're truly trying to battle us, they need to go 170, and they just didn't. So I was actually kind of confused. Like assuming they're battling us, I was really confused about that attempt selection. Obviously, in hindsight, they're not battling us. They're just trying to make sure they don't get third. So that makes sense in that scenario. But in real time, what I was thinking was, oh, you're just folding. Like you are literally just like folding, saying GG, it's over. Like we're not even gonna put up a fight. So because they put in 165, I just put in 167 and a half. Which once again, yes, you can dog on me for not putting in 168 and not chipping the record, but technically this is a record, right? And I already am thinking about going for the deadlift record. And the only thing going through my mind here is that like, all right, 5 kilos should be an easy jump. This puts us 2.5 kilos ahead of Jessica's squat, and if we do this, then it's absolutely game over. Like she cannot possibly try to beat us if we out squat her. That is her one lift that actually contests us, right? So by putting just that increment ahead, that 2.5 kilos more, which I'm very confident Bella can do, this for me in my mind, like this seals the deal. This pretty much locks it up. There's no coming back from this. So load up 167 and a half here for the third. Beautiful third attempt here. So, oh, I didn't mean to go back that far. But anyway, this is actually kind of a cool point. So I was going to get to this. So this is Jessica's third attempt, 165. Let's see if I fast forward this a hair. That didn't look hard at all, right? That looked like a really easy third attempt. So in my mind, I think she has another 5. So even though she wasn't battling us, I'm still like happy that like when I sat down to think about like step by step how this meet is going to play out, I was like, she needs to squat 170. I think she can do it. And here we are. Smokes 165. Absolutely could have put 170.5 on the bar, and I think she would have got it. No questions asked. So I think like I'm at least happy that like my prediction on that front was correct. But to fast forward back to this. $167. Solid third. Little room left in the tank. I think if we truly were battling, I think we had 170 in the tank to push them a little bit higher. Now, if it had actually followed the plan of we were having to go before them and having to take our third, there's a good chance I actually just go 167 because of the fact that Bella had mentioned to me that she, had that indigestion. She kind of she said she felt like she was going to puke when she's on racking the bar. It didn't affect her strength, but she said she felt like that. So in my mind, when I was thinking about the attempt selection, I was like, all right, I really don't want to have to go 170 if I don't have to. I want to go 167 because that's like a really safe third, and I know we can get it even if we don't feel like our stomach doesn't feel 100%. So yeah, as soon as I see Jessica puts in 165, I'm like, oh, we're just going 167. If we get the 2.5 kilo lead here, then we're golden. So after this, the meet's not over, but it's basically over. So moving on to bench. Honestly, the first two are just easy. Like bench, we don't care what Jessica does at this point. We're just going to go 3 for 3 here. We end up going for 87.5 kilos, which is 193 pounds. Now, I think the important thing to talk about here is that Bella trains on a fat pad and training. Or not, like, it's a rogue pad, not a fat. It's like the thick, technically it's comp legal, right? But it's thicker right? And it's taller. Um, she had benched 200 to comp standard, like with commands on the rogue pad. So she had benched 200. When we were making the attempt selection, I go, all right, we're traveling and we have to go down to a TSS rack pad, which is not a bad rack, but it's not good. It's not the cushion that the rogue pad is. So I said, all right, we can either go 93 or 98. I think 98 is too heavy. I think 193 is like the safe third. It's we're gonna go 3 for 3 here, get all our kilos, just kind of add it to the total and move on. Because once again, you don't want to over exert, because of the fact that I mentioned, like with Bella, you don't want anything to move too slow and too grindy because it can start to break her down. So I figured, if let's say we go 82, 87, 90, and it's like we miss our third, so we still end up at 87, what can happen is that she has to grind out a third bench. She maybe doesn't get it, and then her back is now starting to spasm and lock up, and now deadlift is compromised. So we don't want that to happen. So I go for the really easy third bench just to make sure that we add the kilos to the total, and we don't we just don't give any room for error, because I guess that's the other thing I wanted to mention, that I'm just remembering now. So when I talked to Bella, we had some objectives we wanted to hit. One of them was obviously win. Number 2 was, I told her, I was like, hey, we're planning for the worst case scenario. However, it's probably not going to be the worst case scenario, and there's a good chance this meet isn't the hard, like we don't have to work incredibly hard for you to win. With that being said, I do not want us getting lazy. I don't want us making mistakes. I told her flat out, I'm like, I want you to go in there with a killer instinct, even if it doesn't matter. Even if if she is not contesting us, I don't care. I want you to go in there and still bury her 6 feet deep. I don't want you giving any ground. I want you to go in there with your killer instinct and just lights out, knock out the competition, give no one any room to even think about contesting you, right? Because I think that's where you can have the stronger lifter lose if they get cocky, they make mistakes, they make bad attempt selections, and things get out of control, right? So I really emphasize to her, I do not want us to let our foot off the gas. No matter what our opponent's doing, we are executing our game plan. So that was the other kind of big mission there. And as you guys have probably know by now, she did go 9 for 9. That was her first 9 for 9 ever. So that's also a really big accomplishment, to go 9 for 9 at your best meet ever with all the records. Yes, 87.5, super easy. We knew. What would she have gotten 90 if she went for it? Maybe. It's a coin flip at that point, right? The only other important thing to note here is Jessica ends up missing her third attempt bench, which is her other lift that's supposed to create space in between her and us, right? So I had predicted 100. They only were at 97. So I actually remember watching her second attempt and being like, all right, you got 2.5. And then they go up 5. And I'm like, oh, why are they doing that? I'm like that. When I saw that, I'm like, so you're choosing to fight on your bench after not fighting on your squat. Interesting. Very interesting. Obviously, they were just trying to go for the PR, right? But I thought that was a very interesting call. Whereas, smart attempt selection, if you're assuming we're in a battle, is you push the squat and you would have just gone 95 to try to tie and not give up ground. But they end up missing this. So after I see this, I'm like, oh, now it's super done. Because originally I had assumed that, all right, if we're tying at 170 and let's say they have 170.5, and if they get up to 100, right, that would create a 12.5 kilo spread, and then we have to out deadlift them by at least 15, which I think we can do. Now, with how it currently is, we are 2.5 ahead on squat. We are only now 5 behind on bench. So now we're only on the subtotal. We're only 2.5 behind, right? We are only 2.5 kilos behind on bench, or on our total, and we are opening up 25 kilos heavier, it's over. As soon as we hit our opening deadlift, it is over. And it's funny because obviously her teammates were there. CU was there watching the meet, and they kind of knew our rough game plan, but they obviously like the Wi-Fi in there wasn't working the best. So I don't know how much phone access they had to watch lifting casts stuff like that, but they were watching the meet, and they're like, yeah, we started realizing like once we got to deadlift, they're like, oh, it's just over, right? So at this point, I remember telling Bella, I'm like, hey, bad news. Jessica missed her third. And Bella like had this like moment of like, oh, bad news, but then like obviously I was being sarcastic. She's like, oh, cool. Puts her headphones back on. So I was like, all right, like we won basically. We just had to hit our opener. Theoretically, if we hit our opener and then miss our second and third, Jessica would need to jump, I think, 25 kilos to tie or to beat us. She needed to jump 12 twice, which she jumped 12 the first time, so I didn't think the second 12 was going to happen, but I was like, there's technically a world where that can happen. So I was like, we need to get our, if we get our second attempt, then it's like absolutely lights out. There's no world, but like technically, if we only hit our opener, then like there's a world, very unlikely, but there's a world where that can happen. So deadlifts come around 185 here. Super easy. So this is 2.5 kilos more than her deadlift that won last year, right? So her openers were heavier. Yeah, her openers across the board were heavier than her third attempts last year. So just kind of cool that like we were able to make that much progress. So opener, super easy. We were big chillin'. So we just go for our planned second attempt, which was the 195.5. This is where we officially are like, all right, we're taking the chip now. And I see Jessica jumped up 12 and a half. I'm like, all right, like, makes sense. You're taking a bigger jump from first to second than you normally take. I wasn't sure where they were planning on going for their third, but at this point I was like, it's over. Like, I was not concerned about them battling us for first. So here we go. Second attempt. Nice and easy. We get the record. Beautiful. So at this point, we go, okay, we have the American record squat, which at the time, I didn't realize that was also the junior world record. So technically, we also got the unofficial junior world record. But we can't hit junior world records at Collegiate National, so I didn't super pay attention to that, but we ended up hitting it anyway. So we're planning for our third deadlift, and at this point, it's like we can take whatever we want because we already won, right? There's nothing they can do. After we hit our second attempt, we go back around, we see what Jessica put in for her third. You know, it wasn't anywhere close to battling us. We were 20 kilos ahead anyway, so it's like we're golden, right? They ain't nothing they can do. So for deadlift, we were kind of sitting. Well, I mean, before that started, we were kind of planning what our third attempt was because we knew we had basically won at this point. And we looked up what the unofficial junior world record is, and it was 201. So we're like, all right, we'll chip it. We'll go 201 and a half. It also that ends up being 444. So it's also an angel number. So Bella was like, oh, let's do the angel number. That's sick. So ending with 444. So that is what we end up loading here. We chip the world record, which I wish they don't do any, like Lifting Cast doesn't do anything for unofficial world record, right? I wish that would happen because like you'll see here, Gino like tries to get the crowd hype for this deadlift, and like the crowd just like not, there's it. I don't know if people just started like, because we were like one of the last flights, so people kind of started like exiting at this point. So the venue wasn't super crowded in terms of like the stage or the audience wasn't super crowded, so there wasn't a ton of people cheering. And you'll see here Gino, he's like trying to get people to get hyped up, and you'll even see him be like, "Come on, mother effers!" Right there, you can tell him, like you can hear him. Because I'm standing right next to him, and I wanted to tell him, be like, hey, this is an unofficial world record, but I don't know, he wasn't close enough, and it was really loud. I figured he wouldn't be able to hear me. So Yeah, I feel like this deadlift should have been more hype in terms of the crowd and what everything was going on, but people were just kind of like, "Oh, she won, like cute, whatever." But in reality, it's like, "Oh, this is an unofficial world record. This is hype as hell." So we go out here, and this is what's nice is like this is kind of right in the middle of where we planned, where like 200s are easy third, 202 is kind of our comfortable but more top end third. So taking this 201 is really nice. And then we get this is the only red light she got all day, which was not locking out from the front, but we got the two whites from the side. So we get the lift. This is Bella's first 9 for 9 meet, and we walk away with American record junior and collegiate American record squat, deadlift total, and then those were all junior unofficial world records as well. So fantastic job. Obviously not as like technically as hype as last year, because last year, it was a fight to the bitter end. We only won by 2.5. It was a lot more of the gamesmanship and the math and the fighting last year versus this year. We ran away with it, right? Like we beat the second place by 20 kilos. Now, technically, it could have been just a teeny bit less because Jessica didn't fully push her third squat. She pushed her third deadlift, but not her third squat. So it could have been like 5 kilos closer, like more like 15. But regardless, like that's running away with it, right? Like when you effectively win on your deadlift opener, you have ran away with it. Bella could have missed every single third attempt and still won by 10 keys. So that's where like, all right, it was like roughly 10 keys. She could have won by 10. Even if she missed all third of her attempts, she still would have roughly won by 10 keys. That is running away with it, right? So, very proud of Bella. Amazing prep, amazing execution, and like I said at the top of the video, or like midway through the video, I realized we didn't give any breathing room, right? We came out, I said, hey, like, we still need to execute. We still need to go out there and, like, show them you're the best. Like, don't give them a reason that, like, don't give them any openings. Don't give them any opportunities to think they have a chance. Go out there, smoke them all. Just beat them all down. And that's exactly what she did. So, very, very proud of Bella here. And I'm glad I was able to be here for this one. I wasn't able to be there last year due to some family tragedy, but super proud of Bella. We got the repeat. We ran away with it. Made amazing progress. We added effectively 50-ish kilos from her between championships, which is amazing. That's the exact, but it was basically the same spread she did to go from the 10th seed to winning in 2025. So, yeah, amazing progress, amazing execution, and also just proud that once again, like I felt like we had a really solid game plan. I figured, I pretty much knew, at least on squat, beat for beat, what was going to have to happen for them to fight us, and it didn't play out the way I expected it. I think if they were truly fighting us, it would have played out pretty closely to what I expected, and then bench is just kind of bench, and deadlift is obviously, because I predicted up to 185, they ended up at 177. So 77 below what I said was like worst case scenario, but you just never know with these collegiate lifters. Like sometimes they'll have these insane runs of making progress, sometimes they won't. So you kind of have to prepare for the worst. So yeah, that is the meet recap. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. It was a lot of fun to be there. New Orleans was sick. Like this is definitely my favorite location I've ever traveled to. It was awesome to, the venue was nice. Other than like the Wi-Fi day one was kind of ass. Everything else was great. And then getting to just hang around NOLA and go visit the French Quarter and do all that fun stuff was sick. So had a fantastic time at this meet, and I'm in. Collegiate Nationals also is just the best vibe. Like Raw Nationals is a little bit more serious, a little bit more, everyone's like kind of not at each other's throat, but it has a much more serious tone to it. Collegiate Nationals is a vibe, man. Everyone's just having fun. Got a bunch of kids being delinquents. It's great. So had a lot of fun, absolutely crushed it, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Peace.